General Manager Mike Grier met with the media on Friday and gave us some insight on his thoughts on the draft, free agency, and some Sharks players.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker at the Reef, also the co-host of Locked On NHL. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. And if you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do is just follow along wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. And today we're going to be examining some of Mike Grier's media availability from Friday. We're going to be talking about his thoughts on the draft, trading the first overall pick, a little insight into free agency and what it sounds like Mike Grier is going to be prioritizing, and the latest on Kovalenko and Will Smith's futures. So let's start first by the draft, because of course the draft is super fun, and that's chronologically that is the first thing that comes. Of course, right now the Sharks do have the best odds into heading into the draft lottery to secure the number one pick. Of course, with that, the Sharks will select no worse than number 3. So Grier talked about, kind of how he sees the board, how his scouts see the board, and kind of gives a little insight on who he thinks is probably going to go number 1. Let's hear from Mike Grier.
Probably top 5 is probably different than, probably 80% of the league's top 5. So our scouts have done a good job seeing all these kids. There's a lot of talent. I think we feel really good about the player. Wherever we end up, where the ping pong balls go, I think we're going to get another really good player that's going to really help our group. So it's at the top of it's probably more after Schaefer, it's probably more forward heavy, I would say, which is fine. Like I said, I think it's going to be, there's good players there.
So, a couple things there. After Schaefer, let's start with that. After Schaefer is pretty forward heavy, so I feel like he also feels that Matthew Schaefer is number 1 in the draft. It's, as most scouts do, right? Matthew Schaefer is kind of the consensus number 1. Pushing up that he's also a defenseman. We did the whole Schaefer versus Misa debate, but if the Sharks do get number 1, I would be surprised if they don't draft Matthew Schaefer. The other big thing that came out of there was our top 5 is different than 80% of the other, boards in the NHL. I think that speaks to more of how this draft is, right? Where you feel like it's Schaefer and Misa, 1 and 2. And then after that, I think you can have a legitimate argument for a lot of different players, whether it's James Higgins, Porter Martone, Victor Eklund, Anton Frundell. Like, there's a ton of, and everybody we've talked to, right, where, Tony, Scouch, like the list goes on everybody you talk to with this, they say kind of the same thing of like, it's just such a weird draft class where there isn't such a consensus, and I think everybody is going to have different drafts, and everybody's got their own boards. Look at Beckett Seneca, perfect example, right? We were looking at maybe the Sharks could get him with the 14th pick in last year's draft, and we did some of the mock drafts and stuff. Dude went number 3, right? And even last year it was Macklin Celebrini, and then you could kind of just throw a bunch of names in the hat and you could kind of come up with an order. I kind of feel like it's the same way between, it's going to be Schaefer, Misa, Schaefer, however the top order goes there. And then you can probably throw a bunch of names in hats. So I wouldn't freak out. I think Mike Grier earns the benefit of the doubt with the way he's drafted. I think he's quickly rebuilt to the Sharks pipeline, adding high-end talent of different sizes and skills, right? You look at Will Smith, not the biggest dude, uber skilled, drafted him 4th overall. You got Quentin Musty at 26th. You got Luca Cagnoni in the 4th round. You got Macklin Celebrini last year at number 1 overall. Sam Dickinson. Like, the Sharks have, like, Mike Grier. He's not just going to draft third line grinders. And again, don't freak out on the 80%. I think that just speaks to how weird this draft class is, especially after the top 2. So Grier was also asked about potentially trading the first overall pick. He said last year that he got some wild offers for Celebrini and basically was just like, nah, bro, we're good. We're taking Macklin Celebrini. This year, a little bit different answer, but still, I would be shocked if the Sharks if they get the first overall pick, if they would trade it. So here's what Grier said.
I'm not going to say no if someone wants, someone wants to make a really good offer of established young players, and yeah, I'm not going to. It's not something I'm going to close the door on. Last year I probably shut the door on everything that came my way, but you never know. You never know what if there's a Ricky Williams, Herschel Walker type offer up there, and I think we'll listen. So.
Okay. As he said, right, last year he shut the door, but Ricky Williams, Herschel Walker type offers. If you don't know who those are or that trade is, let me enlighten you a little bit. So Herschel Walker was traded from the Dallas Cowboys to the Minnesota Vikings way, way back in the late 80s. That trade, thanks to 33rd Team's graphic here, the Vikings received Herschel Walker, a 1990 third-round pick, a 1990 10th-round pick, a 1991 third-round pick. Dallas received 4 players, 1990 first-round pick, which became Emmitt Smith, a 1990 second-round pick, a 1990 sixth-round pick, a 1991 first-round pick, 1991 second-round pick, 1992 first-round pick, 1992 second-round pick, and a 1992 third-round pick. Whew. In 99, the New Orleans Saints traded literally their entire draft. They for the 5th overall pick to draft Ricky Williams. The Washington team they received 12th overall, 71 first overall in 99, 107 overall, 144 overall, 179 overall, 218 overall. So the entire 1999 Saints draft class. 2000, they got the 2nd overall pick and then the 64th overall pick. So, Mike Grier isn't trading the first overall pick unless he gets something insane. Like, those are insane trades that you looking at it today, right? Especially the Cowboys one. The Cowboys built an entire dynasty based off of that one trade. No team, like Matthew Schaefer's good. Matthew Schaefer's going to be a very good player. Matthew Schaefer's not playing in the NHL next year. Like, sorry, guys. Michael Misa, probably going to be pretty good. Misa's probably not playing in the NHL next year. So why would a team in a weird draft class where everyone's going to have everyone's board's going to be different, why would a team trade all those picks for a chance to go get Schaefer or Misa? That's not going to help them right now. So, and again, I don't think that's not the expectation that, Grier would get, like, all that type of stuff. And football and hockey, completely different, et cetera, et cetera. But I think the point remains, like, you're going to have to blow Mike Grier away with an offer for him to trade the number 1 overall pick. So I would be shocked if the Sharks were to trade the number 1 pick, unless it is for, like, one, you're getting insane value, like all those, and number 2, you're getting an NHL, like a very high-end NHL player that can help you right now. So I don't expect Mike Grier to do that. And I don't expect Mike Grier to also trade back, again, unless he gets like an insane offer, just because with a draft that is very non-consensus, there's a really good chance players that you like might be in pockets that you know, the kind of pockets to draft. And the Sharks have plenty of draft ammo to kind of do what they want. So right now, again, if the Sharks get the number 1 pick, I think it's Matthew Schaefer. I think that is going to be the way Mike Grier leans. So Mike Grier also did get some thoughts on free agency and kind of the plans with that. So we're going to discuss that next. Also, he kind of brought up Kovalenko and Will Smith, and Will Smith's kind of plans to play center again. So we'll get to all that here in just 1 second. Stanley Cup playoffs are here, and if you've never been to a live NHL playoff game, it's unlike anything else. The intensity, the speed, the energy in the building, it's next level. And thanks to Game Time, getting in the door is easier and more affordable than ever. Game Time is the fastest way to grab playoff tickets, even for those must-see matchups. Prices actually drop as the puck drop gets closer. With last-minute deals, you can save up to 60%. I've used Game Time a bunch of times. If you want to go get Barracuda playoff tickets, if the Barracuda get to play a home game in the second round, perfect place to go get tickets. All-in pricing shows the total cost up front. No surprise fees at checkout. The app even shows you panoramic seat views, so you know exactly what you're getting before you buy. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, before we continue, we talk about some free agency plans. Do, of course, want to thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. If you haven't yet, perfect time to subscribe as we start our off-season kind of blueprint with $40 million to spend in cap space, minimum of 20 to spend, and then projected top 3 pick. Important offseason as the Sharks start to try to climb out of the basement here. So we'll have plenty of fun stuff to talk about this offseason. So make sure you're following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. So Mike Grier was asked with free agency this summer, right? Again, the Sharks have $40 million of cap space. They had to spend at least $20 just to get to the cap floor. And of course, he does want the team to get better. So Grier was kind of asked what his priority is this offseason to try to kind of help the Sharks take that next step. And here you go.
Well, I think it's all somewhat tied together, but we definitely have to, be better defensively. Keep pucks out of our net, cut down on, the high danger chances, and be able to get out of our end a little quicker and not get hemmed in so long. So it's all kind of tied together. But as you see, as the playoffs get starting here, and you watch Four Nations, it's you're not going to win too many games when it really matters. 7-5 and things like that. You got to be tighter and better defensively, and I think that's that's kind of the next step for our group is to cut the goals against them.
How does that happen?
So, as I've stated several times on Twitter, etc., I think the Sharks are overhauling this defense. And Mike Grier said it right there, right? They have to try to be better defensively. And, he went on and said, and asked about like guys, Jan Ruda, if they might be coming back, etc. Like, they're on their list, but we want to explore all avenues, etc. It's like he was being very kind of diplomatic there, but he and the Sharks should look to upgrade this defense because it hasn't been great. Yes, there was improvements, and we're going to talk about that tomorrow as we look at tomorrow. We're going to be looking at some of where the Sharks got better, but this defense is still a huge issue for the San Jose Sharks because it's just not good enough, and they just don't have enough puck-moving defensemen. They get hemmed in their own zones too often. They just spend way too much time in their defensive zone because of just the inability to get the puck out of the zone. So this is just something that these are all clues as we kind of build our roadmap to this offseason of what I think the Sharks are going to do or what I think the Sharks should do. Just stuff to keep in mind. And I think overhauling the defense is going to be number one, like the number one priority on this offseason should be overhauling this defensive group. And whether that's veterans, young up and coming players, whatever it is, just more injection, just a huge injection of talent. So Grier was asked about that Dallas pick. And this kind of goes hand in hand with the thing that we just heard about the defense. He was asked about that Dallas pick, and here's what he said, which is,
I think it just gives us some ammo to be involved in some things if players become available, or like you said, if it's to try and move up or whatever it may be. But it's I think it's a pretty valuable thing, and if we use it as a drafted player, then it's someone we'll be excited about to kind of add to our cupboard of young players. But it's definitely that's definitely a possibility. We got that. Having two firsts this year and two next year, I would say those picks will be in play.
So, Mike Grier, you see the Mike Grier playbook, right? We're gonna get some picks, and we're gonna go trade for young players who we think are going to be able to help our group sooner rather than later. And one of those guys that they just did last summer was Yaroslav Askarov, right? We don't know who's going to be available this offseason, but, there's whispers and rumors on players who aren't currently happy in their situation. At this point, I would be really surprised if the Sharks pick with that Dallas pick, just because I think these Sharks are going to be right. We just heard we want to fix our defense. We also have this number one pick in what's a weird draft class. We know Mike Grier is more than willing to trade that pick, being the Dallas pick, to go get players who we think are going to be long-term pieces for us, i.e. Yaroslav Askarov. Let's see what young defensemen become available. Maybe aren't happy with their situation. And let's go from there. Speaking about Askarov, Grier also kind of gave some insight on Askarov and what they're going to be looking for this off season in terms of a backup.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it probably wouldn't be ideal to have two young and inexperienced guys in the net. So, there's all different levels of, of veterans. There might be guys who've played, 3 or 4 years, and then there's the guys that have been in the league 10 years. So we'll look at all type of those guys, and we're our kind of goalie group, and myself and the staff we're kind of assessing right now of personality wise of what we think would work best with Aski.
So he did also mention he doesn't he's not going to just give the job to Askarov. Spoiler, Askarov's going to get a fair amount of starts, but I don't expect Askarov to get, the 55, 60 starts that's I don't think that's a realistic expectation in his first full season in the NHL. I do think it might be more of a split, especially if you look at Dustin Wolf, right? Very early, it was very even split between Wolf and Vladar. By the end of the season, one, Wolf established himself, and two, the Calgary needed Wolf to win every possible game. Wolf got the lion's share of starts down the stretch, and I don't think the Sharks are going to be in a playoff push, but I wouldn't be surprised if kind of the same formula of let's get Askarov and, goalie, back goalie 1A or goalie 1B, whoever the backup goalie is, right? Let's split things pretty evenly early, and then let's see who kind of takes the job. So, and with Askarov expected to be in the NHL next year, that goes back to the first point of you got to overhaul this defense because it's not fair. I don't think you don't want to put your franchise goalie in a position behind an extremely leaky defense. And again, go into the Mike Grier playbook. We know the Sharks worked a long time to get this Askarov trade, right? This is something they had mentioned, Mike Grier has mentioned, we've worked for a while to try to get this trade. He set the foundation beforehand by overhauling the Barracuda defenseman, right? Getting Lucas Carlson, getting Jimmy Schultz, two premier AHL defensemen. Yes, you got lucky with Luca Cagnoni popping off the way he did. And Jake Furlong had a great, rookie season. And yes, some of your rookies play well, but he went out of the way to go get two high-end defensemen for the Barracuda. Again, it's like Mike Grier he's laying the playbook out for you guys. He's going to go out and get at least one. Wouldn't be surprised if he goes out and gets a couple of good defensemen who still fit the timeline, but gives you some runway so that way you're not running out. You cannot run out the same defensive group and just be like, we're good, guys. Right? You can't just keep running out the same defensive group, especially with Askarov. It is different now that you have Askarov here. And I think it's starting to be, I don't want to say it's go time, but again, we want to see progress, and the Sharks have $1 bajillion in cap, right? You have to spend at least $20 million to comfortably hit the cap floor. And you don't really have any free agents of your own that are going to be worthy of kind of giving massive contracts to. So the playbook's in front of you. He's already done this. He's going to do it again. Don't be surprised when the Sharks get a couple defensemen to really help Askarov out. So we're going to talk about Will Smith's future. It sounds like the plan is to move him back to center, and Kovalenko. Well, maybe he's going back to Russia. So we'll discuss that here in just 1 second. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles like EA Sports College Football 25, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, Avowed, as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. Plus, of course, you can also have 4K streaming with more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribe services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. If you're like me, it's just Bluey on 24/7 in our house. Could be worse. So head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd generation. All right, before we finish up, of course, I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Time. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. You get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Okay, last two things here were kind of, he mentioned a lot of players, but these were, I think, the two kind of biggest things. Someone asked about kind of Will Smith and his future, and if the idea is to, I think it was Max Miller, to get him back to playing center. And here's what Mike Grier had to say.
Yeah, I mean, we drafted as a center. He's been a center his whole life, and I think starting next year we'll probably get him back in there and see how it goes. I think it never hurts. I think that kind of used to be a little bit of the old way when centers would come in the league as wings and learn their trade like that. I know Tomas Hurdle did it here, started on the wing and went back to the middle, and I think Will is more than capable of being a really good center in this league and a point producing center and an impactful center. So,
man, I love what I feel like. I feel like I'm right sometimes. And how many times have I asked people, if people have asked me a lot, right? Is Will Smith going to be a center, et cetera, et cetera? Is he going to play on wing? And I've said he's on the Tomas Hertl path to success, right? Of starting on the wing and then going back to center. And when you hear Mike Grier say the exact same player, it makes you feel good that maybe broken clock, blind squirrel, et cetera, et cetera. Once in a while, I get something right, and it feels like I'm getting something right. That being said, you still need to have a backup plan going into this offseason. So as we kind of build out this Sharks offseason formula and kind of, I still think getting someone who has wing center flexibility, right? Where if you feel like, you give Will Smith a little bit of a run, maybe it's not working out, you can slide either player X into that center role, or maybe Alex Wenberg into that center role, move Will Smith to this back to the wing, and then have free agents, whomever that player X, kind of play the third line or second, like finding someone who can play a middle six center if you need him to, I think is going to be high on the Sharks priority list, because yes, we would love to see Will Smith be a center, right? Because that solves a lot of your problems if Will Smith ends up being your second line center. But I still think you need a contingency plan, and you can't have the whole season go down in flames because your second line just falls apart because the center situation doesn't work. So I do think that is again, as we build our off season, finding a guy who can play middle 6C, but can also play on the wing, I think should be one of the Sharks' priorities here. So, and then finally, we know Kovalenko didn't have kind of the season he wanted after, getting traded to the Sharks, right? He was a healthy scratch for a while. There was, of course, the interview he did in Russia, which was a joke, wasn't a joke, who knows. And when asked, about Kovalenko and his future and stuff, Mike Grier, he spent a good time talking about Kovalenko and kind of the expectations for him, and with a lot of players, right, where you're not trying to find your role and your niche in the NHL. And I think maybe Kovalenko kind of struggled with that a little bit. So here's what Grier was asked on with Kovalenko and if he might be back next year. So
I can't speak for him. I mean, I'm sure he might have opportunities to go back home and play back home or be comfortable back home. I'm not sure what his thought is that way. But from us, he was I think he's a talented kid. We just got to sort out. How much he's willing to buy into what we want to do and how we want to do things here, and we'll kind of go from there. I don't know if I wouldn't call it disappointing. We were excited about the player, but sometimes things don't work. Things don't work out, and it's kind of part of the business. But I wouldn't, it's not a closed door or a closed chapter, or that kid's his story hasn't been written yet. So we'll kind of see where it goes.
I think he's done. I think Kovalenko goes back. It doesn't seem like a good fit, right? Because Kovalenko feels like he needs to be playing kind of top 6 minutes, and I don't think the Sharks are getting what they want out of him, and maybe Kovalenko isn't meeting them halfway, or whatever it is. It doesn't seem like just a good fit, unfortunately. And like Mike Grier said, right, sometimes this stuff happens. And I'm right now, again, it is April 20th. We have a very long off season with him, but if I had to guess right now, I think Kovalenko probably goes back to the KHL and goes to play hockey over there, and where he probably is going to be able to play, up in the lineup more and get to kind of score and do all that other stuff instead of kind of where he was at with the Sharks. So, which is disappointing, right? It's always disappointing when something doesn't work out. But again, he still got a second round pick out of that, and I think that's still kind of the prize of that draft is that second round pick and whatever you do with that second round pick. So, but yeah, just some miscommunication or whatever it is between Kovalenko and the Sharks. It doesn't feel like it's maybe doesn't work out. And he's still an RFA, and he could come back to San Jose next year, and maybe with an improved roster, right? And the hope is to kind of fix some of the roster issues with, again, ton of cap space. Maybe he kind of fits in the plans a little bit better, or maybe the Sharks are a little bit deeper team where they can have him play in that middle six type of role, and he can maybe thrive in there. So we'll see. But those were, I think, some of the big topics from Grier's press availability, and some of the, I just kind of wanted to use this as, I guess, kind of a roadmap for the off season, right? And what Grier said here, and just to kind of keep some of that stuff in mind as we, look at potential free agents, as we look at the draft class, as we look at who the Sharks potentially could trade for, like keeping these things in mind, because we've seen Mike Grier, we've seen his playbook a little bit already, and how does he try to replicate it successfully and as we, again, start to try to build this thing up here a little bit. So that's gonna be it for me today. We'll be back tomorrow. So the next 2 days we're gonna be looking at where the Sharks got better on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday we're gonna be looking at where the Sharks kind of got worse this season as we start our kind of debrief of the season. So make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts, and of course you can watch on YouTube as well. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at My Fry Hole. Until tomorrow. Bye, friends.